My computer.
Okay. Hi, so we chose to look into the relationship between opiate abuse and cancer incidence and mortality. So to do this, we wanted to look into the rates of opiate abuse for some specific drugs that are most associated with cancer pain treatment and see its relationship to cancer incidence and mortality rates. We think this is important because it might help future health workers and policymakers better understand prescription medication abuse for those who are already sick or in pain.
So for this, we posed 3 research questions. The first being, are those who are prescribed pain medication more likely to abuse pain medication? The second being, are there regions or states with higher rates of pain medication abuse? And the third, are regions with high cancer incidence / mortality more likely to have high rates of pain medication abuse?
To answer these questions, we used 2 data sets. So the first one was one of the provided data sets, the 2019 survey in the United States. We chose this one because of its recency and accuracy, since it was the only one that could be taken easily over a cell phone. From this, we removed all observations that had NA values for fentanyl, oxycodone, and hydrocodone use. This left us with 908 observations and all states included in the sample. The second data set we used was a state level data set on cancer incidence and mortality that is collected by the CDC and NCI.
All right, for the first question, we looked at prescription versus the non-medical use of opiates and tried to create a factor variable. But once we removed all of that and got it down, our sample size was unfortunately too low. So although we could not statistically evaluate the relationship between prescribed use and non-medical use, we believe this is still valuable information for the Rocky Mountain Poison Control Center just to see how widespread opiate use is.
So with that, we had to move on to our second question about regional variation. And we looked at 2 different elements of that. We looked at non-medical use, and then we also looked at general health. For non-medical use, we found that there was not a statistically significant region factor, but for general health, there might have been. And when we thought about this more, we had to look into the fact that this was census defined for regions. And it was a convenient sample, and our sample was small, so we knew there were some limitations we were working with, but enough to show that there might be a regional element. And we thought that census categorization might be problematic and why we were getting some of the results we were, because we know that health trends can contain geographic elements that transcend those 4 regions defined by the census. So this is a map of cancer incidence, and as you can see, there are clearly regional clusters of high incidence rates, as you see in the dark blue, and low in the light blue, that are different than what the census would define as just the Northeast, South, and West.
All right, so for our third question, we looked at cancer and non-medical use, and we found the mean cancer incidence rate. This is all across the states, the mean cancer mortality rate, and the overall proportion of non-medical use across the states. So then from there, we looked at the states with above average cancer incidence and mortality rates to see if those states also have an above average non-medical use. Then we compared that to the states on the lower end of things, on the below average.
What we found from that was that high rates of cancer incidence and mortality were associated with higher usage or higher non-medical usage of opiates. But the picture got a little muddier when we looked at the lower end. It wasn't as clear of a correlation that low cancer mortality would be associated with low non-medical use of opiates. But we did find that the trends were enough here to suggest that higher rates of cancer mortality might be associated with higher rates of non-medical use.
Yep. So for our conclusion, it looks like we might have a relationship between high rates of cancer incidence and mortality with abuse of related medications. So this is a promising area for future research. If Rocky Mountain Poison Control Center wants to create the most impactful change, it will be important to look into not just general health, but also into specific conditions such as cancer. We've also believed that the survey design could have been improved if the goal is preventing misuse by having these questions come earlier in the survey.
All right, so thank you.